A man believed he had rescued a puppy, but upon bringing it to the vet, he was shocked by the creature's true nature. Using his jacket as a makeshift umbrella, Luke hurried out of his car and ran toward his front door. A faint whimper suddenly caught his attention, making him stop in his tracks. Though the rain poured relentlessly, his curiosity urged him to investigate. He followed the sound, his sneakers squishing against the wet grass. Near the edge of his property, hidden in the bushes, he found a tiny, trembling figure. The creature was curled up beneath a rhododendron, drenched and shivering uncontrollably. As Luke approached carefully, he observed its mud-caked, tangled fur and the small, frightened eyes staring at him. Believing it to be a stray puppy, his heart melted at the sight. He began speaking softly, using calming words to encourage the little creature to come closer, offering warmth and safety. Driven by its need for help, the animal cautiously inched toward Luke's outstretched hand. He scooped it up, wrapped it in his jacket, and hurried inside. The house was cozy, filled with the earthy scent of rain-soaked wood and the mellow tunes of jazz that Luke always left playing for his plants. He set the creature down on a soft towel by the fireplace, rubbing it dry and examining it more closely. It was then that he noticed the odd length of its ears and the peculiar pattern of its coat, which didn't quite resemble any dog breed he knew. Luke's intrigue grew as he prepared some warm milk and chicken, which the creature devoured hungrily. His initial belief that it was a typical puppy waned as he observed its sharp, cautious glances and an eerie quietness that didn't quite fit a young dog's usually boisterous demeanor. Settling beside the fire, Luke watched the creature curl into a ball and go to sleep. Thoughts raced through his mind about where it could have come from and why it was alone. He decided he would take it to the vet the next day for a checkup and to scan for a microchip, hoping to return it to its owners if it was lost. But for tonight, he'd offer shelter and warmth to this mysterious little guest, whose arrival seemed as sudden and charged as the storm itself. As the weekend dawned clear and sunny, contrasting sharply with the stormy chaos of their first encounter, Luke found himself increasingly intrigued by his new enigmatic companion. It was Saturday morning, and Luke wrapped up his usual weekend routine. A brisk hike through the Blue Ridge Mountains, the crisp morning air rejuvenating his spirits, followed by a hearty breakfast. He enjoyed this peaceful start, the simple rituals grounding him. Today, however, he had the added task of preparing his new friend for a visit to the vet. Luke attempted to lighten the mood with a new plush toy and some playful banter, but Storm was peculiarly unresponsive, its gaze drifting to the window, fixated on the world outside. Luke couldn't help but feel a mix of concern and bafflement. Why wasn't Storm reacting like a typical puppy? His mind buzzed with possibilities, but he shrugged off the unease, attributing it to the creature's uncertain origins and recent upheavals. Clipping on a makeshift leash, Luke loaded Storm into his car and headed to the local veterinary clinic, hopeful that Dr. Sophia Ellis would provide some clarity. Upon arrival, the receptionist greeted them with a sympathetic smile, but quickly informed them that Dr. Sophia was unexpectedly out due to a family emergency. The only services available that day were routine vaccinations and flea treatments, none of which seemed pertinent to Luke's unique situation. He was informed that Dr. Peterson would step in as a replacement for Dr. Sophia starting the following week. On the drive home, Luke's mind was consumed by the day's disrupted plans and the peculiar behavior of his newfound companion. The creature appeared oddly relieved to be returning, resting calmly in the back seat of the car. From time to time, its gaze met Luke's in the rearview mirror, holding an enigmatic, unreadable expression. As their time together slipped into routine, Luke's initial assessment of the creature's peculiarities turned into a growing list of anomalies. He named it Storm, a nod to its vigilant nature. Each morning, as Luke brewed his coffee and prepared for the day, Storm would pace the length of the living room with precise, almost measured steps. It ignored the squeaky toys and chew bones Luke had purchased on their way from the vet clinic, instead fixating on the movements outside the window, with an intensity that seemed more fitting for a guard than a domestic pet. The nights were even more unsettling. Storm would position itself at the foot of Luke's bed, staring into the darkened corners of the room with ears perked. As the neighborhood settled into silence, a series of low, mournful howls would emanate from its throat. These weren't the playful yips of a puppy or even the baying of a dog. They were deep, guttural sounds that seemed to stir from the very depths of the wild. Intrigued and slightly uneasy, Luke turned to his blog, a modest platform initially focused on his coding projects and weekend hiking adventures. As a 30-year-old software developer, he started chronicling Storm's behavior, sharing videos and detailed observations alongside his regular posts. One particular entry, titled, "Is My Puppy Not a Puppy?" grabbed the attention of his followers almost immediately, sparking a wave of curiosity and engagement. Responses came in quickly, spanning from light-hearted skepticism to genuine worry. Readers flooded the blog with theories, some suggesting that Storm might be a rare breed, a wolf-dog hybrid, or perhaps an exotic species. The discussion grew as local animal lovers and experts added their input. A few noted Storm's heightened alertness and nocturnal howling as signs that it could have a wild ancestry. Others ventured more imaginative ideas, proposing that Luke may have discovered a creature rarely encountered in the suburban wilds of North Carolina. Luke's curiosity morphed into a resolve to uncover the truth. His posts grew more frequent and detailed, each new behavior meticulously noted and shared. Storm's aversion to typical dog behaviors, its unique vocalizations, and its singular focus on its surroundings became hot topics among Luke's expanding audience. The blog, once a quiet corner of the web, was now a buzzing hub of speculation and debate. As the weekend gave way to a new week, the mystery of Storm's true nature only deepened, compelling Luke to take the next logical step. He needed professional insight. After days of incessant online speculation and his own growing unease, Luke decided it was time for another attempt at visiting the vet. With a mix of apprehension and excitement bubbling within him, he scheduled a visit to see Dr. Peterson, hopeful that he would finally get some answers. Little did he know, this visit would turn his quiet suburban life upside down and thrust him into an unexpected adventure. As they arrived, the clinic was bustling with the usual array of suburban pet dramas: a Labrador with a limp, a cat hissing from its carrier, and an array of worried owners. Luke felt the knot of anxiety and excitement tighten in his stomach. He clutched Storm's leash more firmly as they entered the waiting room. Storm's presence instantly attracted strange glances. A woman walking two dachshunds murmured something urgently to her companion, subtly gesturing toward Luke and Storm. Her wide eyes betrayed a mix of curiosity and possible concern. The companion, a stocky man with a calm golden retriever, scrutinized Storm briefly but quickly averted his gaze when Luke noticed him staring. As their wait stretched on, Luke could feel the weight of every stare, the murmured speculations adding to his own swirling thoughts. Was Storm really just a rare breed? Or something more? Each whisper seemed to echo his doubts, amplifying the surreal nature of the past week. Finally, their number was called. As they approached the examination room, Storm tensed, its body going rigid. Luke reassured it with a gentle pat, but just as they neared the door, Storm's survival instincts kicked in. With a sudden, powerful jerk, it slipped from Luke's grasp and darted away. Chaos erupted in the waiting area. The Labrador barked loudly, the cat screeched from its carrier, and children squealed as Storm zigzagged through the legs of chairs and startled patients. Luke's heart raced as he called out, chasing after the blur of fur that was Storm. The vet's assistant, a quick-thinking young man named Jake, sprinted after them. The chase reached its peak when Jake cornered Storm in a storage room packed with pet supplies. Panting heavily, Luke and Jake finally managed to restrain Storm, whose wide, frantic eyes and labored breathing revealed its sheer terror. On their way back to the examination room, Luke offered repeated apologies to the other pet owners, his face a mixture of deep embarrassment and genuine worry. Inside, the vet, Dr. Peterson, stood waiting with a raised eyebrow and a composed expression. "Quite the spirited one, isn't it?" Dr. Peterson commented as he softly shut the door behind them. The room grew quiet, save for the sound of Storm's labored breathing, now firmly restrained by Jake. Luke nodded, his anxious gaze meeting the vet's experienced eyes, full of questions and desperate for answers. As Dr. Peterson was changing gloves to begin the examination, Luke's mind raced with the possibilities of what was to come. Could this finally be the moment of truth about Storm's identity? Dr. Peterson, a seasoned veterinarian with decades of experience, approached Storm with a mix of professional curiosity and caution. He started by palpating Storm's abdomen, his hands moving deftly, yet gently, over the creature's body. Storm remained oddly compliant, its eyes darting around the room, taking in every detail. Every so often, curious faces appeared at the transparent window that looked in from the waiting room, drawn by the earlier commotion. As Dr. Peterson opened Storm's mouth to check its teeth, his brow furrowed. The teeth weren't like those of any domestic dog he'd ever treated. They were sharper and more pronounced, typical of a carnivorous predator, not meant to be nestled in a suburban home. The vet's expression shifted noticeably, transitioning from professional curiosity to a hint of unease. He took a step back, his eyes widening as the significance of his observations began to register. Dr. Peterson's face reflected both concern and intrigue as he started asking questions, beginning with routine inquiries but growing more pointed as he glanced back at his notes. "What do you call the animal?" he asked, his gaze sharp over the rim of his glasses. "Where did you find him? How long have you had him? Is this your first time bringing him to a vet?" Luke responded, detailing how he had found Storm after the storm, thinking it was a lost puppy. With each answer, Dr. Peterson's eyebrows arched. Higher, his gestures became quicker, and the atmosphere grew thick with urgency. After a rapid-fire series of inquiries, he turned to his assistant Jake, shook his head in disbelief, and dropped the bombshell. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us, thank you very much." "This isn't a puppy, Luke," Dr. Peterson stated. His voice weighted with seriousness. "You've brought in a baby hyena." Dr. Peterson, sensing the alarm his outburst might have caused, quickly sought to regain control of the situation. He turned to Luke, speaking now in a more measured tone. "I understand this is quite unexpected, but you've brought in a young, spotted hyena. It's very rare to see them here, and it's important we handle this carefully." The revelation seemed implausible. Storm's appearance had not immediately revealed its true nature, likely due to its severely malnourished state. Moreover, its fur pattern bore an unusual resemblance to that of a Chihuahua, albeit slightly off, a deceptive trait that masked its typical hyena characteristics. The vet continued to explain the implications. Hyenas were not just unusual, but potentially dangerous, and they were certainly not equipped to live in a domestic setting. They required specialized care and environments that could cater to their wild instincts and needs. As Dr. Peterson arranged for immediate contact with animal control and a local wildlife sanctuary, the room buzzed with a new kind of activity. Realizing the need for immediate and secure handling, Dr. Peterson whispered to Jake to prepare a cage. "Make sure it's spacious and comfortable," he instructed softly, ensuring that their actions were both precautionary and humane. Luke, witnessing these preparations, expressed his concern about the seemingly harsh measures for Storm, who had shown no aggression. Dr. Peterson placed a reassuring hand on Luke's shoulder. "I understand your concerns, Luke," Dr. Peterson said, reassuringly, "but this isn't about punishment. Hyenas are wild animals, and while Storm hasn't displayed aggression, we need to prioritize both safety and his well-being. The cage is simply a precaution to ensure that everyone, including Storm, remains safe until we can transition him to an environment better suited to his nature." Dr. Peterson elaborated, explaining that hyenas, even as juveniles, could be unpredictable and potentially dangerous, particularly in unfamiliar or high-stress environments like a veterinary clinic. He pointed to the spacious cage prepared for Storm, designed with comforts to help calm the animal, while ensuring the safety of the clinic staff and other animals. This careful and considerate approach provided Luke with some reassurance as he tried to process the startling revelation. Dr. Peterson's composed expertise helped to steady Luke's initial shock, offering a clear course of action for managing the rare and unforeseen situation. The atmosphere in the room shifted into a focused calm as preparations were made to safely contain Storm temporarily, while arranging for his transfer to a more appropriate environment for a wild animal of his kind. As Jake carefully transported Storm in his newly prepared cage to a quieter room, away from the hustle of the clinic, Luke watched with a heavy heart. The sight of Storm's big, sorrowful eyes peering through the bars stirred a pang of guilt within him. He couldn't help but feel responsible for Storm's predicament, even though he knew this was the necessary course of action. Sitting alone with Storm in the dimly lit isolation room, Luke felt the weight of the day's revelations. Despite the unexpected turn of events, he realized that from the moment he took Storm in, something had always felt different. This wasn't just about rescuing what he thought was a lost puppy. It was about the bond that had begun to form between them, a connection that transcended Storm's wild nature. As they waited for the wildlife experts to arrive and take Storm into their care, the young hyena seemed attuned to Luke's mixed emotions. Quietly, Storm moved closer to the side of the cage nearest to where Luke was seated, hesitant but hopeful. Luke reached out, extending his hand toward the animal. Storm responded with a gentle lick on Luke's finger and a soft nudge of his head against Luke's hand, a silent gesture of gratitude and farewell. In that fleeting moment, they shared a profound connection, encapsulating the bond they had formed in their brief time together. Watching Storm rest more calmly in the cage, now appearing less frightened and more at ease, Luke felt a deep resolve that he was making the right decision. This moment of clarity brought him a quiet sense of peace, knowing he had played a part in helping a wild creature that had unexpectedly touched his life. Did you enjoy this story? Would you too have let Storm go free like Luke did? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. In bidding farewell to Storm, Luke discovered the importance of understanding and respecting wild animals. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.